Hello, my name is David Murray, and this is a short video about doing an SEO audit on your website. As I'm sure you know, SEO is short for Search Engine Optimization, and is basically a collection of techniques for promoting your website within Google search engine results. So before you consider applying SEO to your website, you need to run this audit to basically see how well or how badly your website is performing. It's amazing how often customers come to me and they've been using an SEO company sometimes for months and months and not really getting any particular results. And the first thing I always do is run this audit to see just what they've done, and it's amazing in many cases they've done virtually none of the basic obvious things that this audit will show you. So this audit doesn't cover absolutely everything, but it kind of gives you a flavor. It gives you the ability to see whether good SEO has been applied to your website or not if you're using an external company to do the SEO for you. If you don't have a website and you're considering creating a new website, it's a really good idea to learn about SEO prior to creating the website. It's a bit like building a house. You know, if you build a house with really good strong foundations, then if it's a one-story house and later on you want to put another story on, there's no problem because the foundations are in place. And SEO is a bit like that. If you do everything properly, then it just makes your job a whole lot easier. So if you want to do this audit yourself, remember the address. It's www.4seo-training.com.au/SEO-audit.htm. Now, if you go to my website, it'll look something like this. I do change my website from time to time, so if it looks slightly different when you're actually watching this video, don't worry about it. But basically, go to my website, which is, remember, www.4seotraining.com.au, and then go to this link in the menu that says Free SEO Audit. When you click on this link, you'll see something like this, and if you scroll down a little bit, you can fill in your details. So in my case, my website is www.4seotraining.com.au, and you need to type in a sort of keyword phrase. I'll go for SEO training because that's primarily what I'm interested in, and I'll just enter my email address here. And then before clicking on the Scan Now button, just check your details are okay. So 4seotraining.com.au, that's correct. That's my keyword phrase. Don't type in a single word. So for instance, in my business, I wouldn't just type in SEO or training. What I'm particularly interested in is SEO training. Then just check your email address and click on the Scan Now button. And here we are, the scan's now completed. So in my case, for the phrase SEO training, I'm getting a score of 92%, which is pretty good. Incidentally, you don't want to actually go for 100% because Google will actually penalize you for over-optimizing your website. So Google actually recommends you create websites for visitors, not to gain the search engine results. So you don't want everything too perfect. So as we'll see, I've actually intentionally left a few things out here, so it's not absolutely perfect. So as I say, don't try and achieve 100% because basically Google will decide that you're trying to game the system and you'll suffer rather than gain. So if I scroll down a little bit, as you can see, this first section talks about speed. Now, the loading speed of your website is an important factor. With SEO, there's about 200 different factors that are taken into account by Google to determine who comes first, who comes last in the search engine results. And the loading speed is one of those factors. So in this particular case, it says the loading speed is fast enough, the size of the page is okay, and the number of file requests is acceptable. In English, this is basically saying the page loads nice and fast when people click on the link to see it. The size of the page is okay. What that means is that I don't have lots and lots of very large graphics with very large file sizes, because that would slow things down. So basically, the larger the size of the page, the slower it's going to load, obviously, because it has to load down from the server to your browser. And this bit here is basically saying there's not too many bits and pieces that have to load up, so that you don't want too many pictures and too many bits of code and all the rest of it. So I've got ticks there, that's all okay. The next section is about the URL, the address, the www.yourcompany.com thing. And it's basically saying the URL is SEO friendly. What does that mean? Well, I'm particularly interested in promoting SEO training, and my URL, remember, is www.seotraining.com.au. So the phrase SEO training is actually part of the URL, the web address, if you like. I've also got the exact keyword as part of the URL, so I'll get a tick for that. There's no underscores, so I wouldn't want, for instance, SEO underscore training. Google doesn't like underscores. And this last bit just says the page is close enough to a top-level domain, so things like a .com, etc. Now, if I go to Google and search for something like SEO training Perth, basically we've got some adverts at the top there. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. Those are adverts. And if we come down here, what I've got is this thing here. This thing here is called a snippet. So this is a snippet for my website. And this first line here, that is the title. Then you've got the URL, and then you've got the description here. And as you can see for other websites, it's the same. So you've got title, URL, then description. So when it's talking about the title here, this is what's called the HTML title, the title that ideally you want to show up in that first line of the search engine results. And of course, I've got the keyword in the title. So my title will be something like SEO training courses in Perth. So SEO training is part of the title. I also get a tick because the title begins with my keyword. So my title will be SEO training blah, blah, blah. So you kind of get the important stuff right at the beginning of the title. And finally here, the title has 70 characters or less. This is basically what most people would recommend. However, as you will see on my premium SEO course, sometimes it's actually an advantage to have titles longer than 70 characters, but that's another story. So there's the title. I've got ticks for that. The description, if we just go back here, there's your title and the search engine results. Remember, this thing here, from here to here, is called the snippet. That's the title there, that's the URL, and this bit down here, that is the description. So if we go and look at my description, the description tag includes the exact keyword phrase. So in the description, it'll have something like blah, 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 SEO training. Now, the other thing about the description is you don't want it to be too long, but you don't want it too short either. So in this case, it's basically saying that the description tag has 160 characters or less, which is spot on. Right, this next section talks about images. So all images have what are called alt tags. What does that mean? Well, if you've got a website, you upload your image files one by one, and once they're displayed within your website, if you're using something like WordPress, you can just click on the image and go and edit the image, and there'll be a little box that comes up that allows you to put an alt tag in. The alt tag is short for alternative, and originally it was designed so that people with visual impairments could have special software that would read the alt tags behind the picture and basically have an idea what the pictures are about. Google also reads those alt tags, and what you want to do is to have the alt tags displaying some text that includes your keyword phrases. So as you can see here, the exact keyword phrase is found in an alt tag on the home page. So as I say, all alt tags are, it sounds complicated, but if you're using something like WordPress, you just simply, when you're editing your pages, you click on the image, you go and edit the image, and there'll be a little box that comes up that says something like alt text or alternative text. And in my case, I just put something like SEO training courses in Perth in there. The next thing here is the exact keyword is in an image file name. Now, if you've got images on your hard disk and then you upload them to your web server, it's a good idea to rename those images prior to uploading them. So let's say you're taking the images yourself. In my case, it might be pictures of me in a training room. If I just use a digital camera, for sake of argument, the first picture could be called something like picture 001.jpg, picture 002.jpg, and so on and so forth. If I went to the trouble of renaming those and using file names that are SEO friendly, so in my case, instead of picture 001.jpg, I could rename it to something like SEO training courses by David Murray in Perth, or .jpg or something like that. The exact keyword in an image file name, as I say, that is important. And also, this thing about underscores, Google doesn't like underscores, so you don't want to have underscores in your file names. Next, we'll look at what words are actually used on your home page. Now, if you don't actually have the words appearing within the body of the text, it's pretty unlikely Google is going to realize that those words are important because they don't exist. So in my case, I want the words SEO, training, seminars, search engine optimization, and lots of related things like that. I want to have all these words peppered within my home page. So as you can see, the most widely used word is SEO. That's probably a little bit over the top, but I'm not being penalized for it. As we'll see in a minute, I do actually come up first. And as you can see, other words are things like website, search, perth, and training. So it's all kind of on message. So these are words that are actually appearing within the text on my website. Now next we've got what are called heading tags. You've got header 1s, header 2s, and header 3s. Now headings basically are just little bits of styling information you can apply to parts of your page. It's exactly the same as you do it in Word. If I go to Microsoft Word, and let's say I want to create a document that's called something like all about SEO, and there's actually two types of SEO. There's what's called on-site SEO, and there's off-site SEO. So what I could do is I'll just do some pretend typing here, but only I could really type this fast, but by typing is pretty useless. So I'm just doing some pretend typing in here, and to save me doing that all again, I'll just copy that down here, and I'll fix that so that it looks a little bit, whoops. Okay, we got that. Now we could just simply have a document like this where everything is just simply looking the same, or I could click in this first line here. And have you ever noticed at the top these styles? I could click within this first line and say, oh, let's mark that as a heading 1. And notice it's styled differently. It's bigger, it's different color. This one here and this one here will be header 2s. So I can click here and I could click here. So basically what I've done is I've marked this line here as a header 1, and this line as a header 2, and this line as a header 2. And the rest of it is just using normal plain paragraph text. And this is a really good habit to get into if you're using Microsoft Word. But the reason I'm showing this in Word is exactly the same sort of principle applies to web pages. So don't get too hung up about the fact it's web pages rather than Word. If you can do this in Word, you can do it in web pages. If you do this in WordPress, it's almost exactly the same. You just click within a line, select a paragraph style like paragraph, which is the default one here, and then header 1 and header 2s. Now the reason this is important is because Google will look at all the text on a page, but not all text is equal. So it'll look at the text within your header 1. So instead of saying all about SEO, in my case, I might want something like SEO training courses in Perth. And then Google will look at this first line, which has been marked as a header 1, and says, oh, what words have we got in there? SEO, training, courses, Perth. Those are the important words. So really you're saying to Google, look, this is what the page is about. You're giving Google more clues about what's important to you and what's important on that particular page. And you can reinforce that with these second level ones, which are header 2s. So that's basically what that is about. Header 1s, header 2s, and header 3s. Incidentally, header 3s don't really count for your SEO. The header 1 is very important, and to a lesser extent, the header 2s are. A mistake I see over and over and over and over again on people's websites is they have websites designed by web designers who are great at producing pretty websites, but fairly hopeless at SEO. And the amount of times I see a header 1 that just says something like, welcome, which means nothing to Google, or welcome to my new website, or blah, blah, blah. So don't fall into that trap of using headers that say welcome or navigation or something like that. What you want is use a header 1 that basically packs your keywords in there. So in my case, it would be SEO training courses in Perth would be a good example, because that would tell Google that this page is about SEO, training, courses, and Perth, and puts all that together. So as you can see, sure enough, what's my header 1 tag? It's SEO training. and I've got a header 2 tag that says SEO training courses in Perth, then a separator, SEO Perth, another separator, web marketing seminars. That's kind of spot on. So basically it's found the heading tags 1, 2, and 3. It's using, or I'm using the exact keyword phrases in the header 1s and the header 2s and what have you. And also there are no duplicate heading tags. So what that means is you don't want, for instance, 2 H2s with exactly the same words, exactly the same phrases. In the same way, you don't want 2 H1s because the headers work in a sort of hierarchical structure. So you only have one H1 on a page. Very important that. You can have as many H2s and H3s as you want, but only one H1. Also, you don't want gaps in the hierarchy, so you don't want an H1 and H3 because it's a hierarchical structure. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're going to have an H3, you should have an H2 and also an H1. And that's what headings are about. So that's one of the important SEO factors. Probably the most important of all is the title. And then in second place we things like your alt tags and these things called heading tags. Right, this next section is a copy analysis, and I've got a red mark here because it's basically saying I don't have enough words. It's very important to realize that Google likes text, period. It likes text and lots of text, and not just any old text. It likes well-written text, to the point, focused. So you don't want lots and lots of different things on a page. You want, in my case, lots and lots of copy that talks about SEO training and seminars and that kind of thing. So it's kind of related text, and I should obviously pack my keywords into those into that text. The other thing is you shouldn't overdo it. You should only use the exact keyword 2 to 4 times. I've actually done it a little bit more than this, which is a bit naughty, but I've still got a nice high percentage there, 92%. And more to the point, when I do a real life search in Google, I come up first, and I'll show that later. Now here's something else that's kind of cool. Exact keyword is either bold, italic, or underlined. If you think about it, if you've got a whole load of text on a page and there's no formatting whatsoever, from a human point of view, you have to wade through all this text to figure out what's important. But simply by marking maybe just a little piece of text as bold, that's a way of telling humans that that bit is important. And the same works for Google. So a lot of SEO is common sense. If you think, well, how do I get a human's attention if you've got a whole bunch of text? You make a little bit of it bold. Not too much, maybe just one word or one phrase. With all of these techniques, do not overdo it, because if you over-optimize your website, you're going to get penalized. But this is another little trick where basically you can have, in my case, maybe the phrase SEO training or SEO training courses in Perth. I could just make that within the text. I can make it bold or italic. Instantly, you don't want to underline it. Think about it. What does underlining normally mean on a website? It normally indicates a link. And again, I see this on lots and lots of websites, underlined text or an underlined word. And I go and click on it and eventually realize, no, that's just an underlined word, is not a link. So links are normally underlined. This one, again, is kind of obvious when you think about it. The exact keyword or keyword phrase was found in the first 100 words. What you want to do when you're writing your website is to go straight in, get to the point. Don't have lots of flowery waffle and irrelevant paragraphs and what have you. So what I want in my case is text right at the beginning, maybe the very first paragraph, that includes the words SEO training and seminars and Perth and other relevant keywords right at the beginning. Right, this next bit, add your exact keyword to anchor text. You might think, whoa, what does that mean? Well, anchor text is purely a text link. So you've all seen these on web pages where it might say something like, click here, which is underlined or shown as a link, click here to download our free worksheet or whatever it happens to be, or a free booklet. So if the words click here were the bit you click on, the words click here, that would be the anchor text. Now again, the amount of times I see the phrase click here as the anchor text is just depressing. What you should do is, let's say in my case, I wanted to have a phrase that said something like, click here to download my free SEO tips and tricks guide. What I want to do is have the bit that says free SEO tips and tricks guide. That I want to make up as the actual link. So that would be the anchor text. So remember, anchor text is purely the text that appears within a text link. Right, what have we got next? Link to an HTML sitemap. What's that? Well, if I bring up my website, and again it might look slightly different when you're looking at this, but if you go to where it says About, there's various bits and bobs here, but one of those things is a sitemap. So what is a sitemap? Well, a sitemap, an HTML sitemap, is just a regular page on your website with links to all the other pages. So for instance, if I click here where it says SEO video tutorial number 1, what is SEO? Click on that and that will take me to that particular page. So if I go back here to the sitemap, an HTML sitemap is purely a page with links to all my other important pages. Right, the next section is code analysis. Now again, I've got a cross here, a little bit naughty. I haven't validated my HTML code. Now, in plain English, HTML is short for Hypertext Markup Language. It's the language that's used behind the scenes, if you like, to put all the pictures and the formatting and the images and the rest of it onto your web page. And this thing, this W3C, that's the organization that maintains the standards for HTML. There's different versions of it. It's a bit like Microsoft Windows. There's new versions coming out all the time. Same with HTML. There's new versions, and they are basically set in stone by this organization here. So ideally, I should have had this validated, but I come up first, so I'm not too worried about that. Now, this next thing says no Flash found, and I've got a tick for that. Flash was a technology that was pretty popular a number of years ago, and it would add interactivity or movement or sort of flashness, if you like, to your website. Trouble was, it was full of security holes and all sorts of other problems, so it's largely fallen away now, been replaced by other things. So you don't want Flash on your website. One of the reasons you don't want Flash on your website is you might find that on Apple devices it just doesn't display. So let's say on a desktop it might display, I don't know, moving pictures or something like that. You'll just find that say on an Apple iPhone there's just nothing displayed there. Now this next thing, remove inline CSS. You don't have to worry too much about this. I tend to use WordPress, and quite often it'll put bits of CSS coding into individual pages. Again, you don't really have to worry about this, but CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And the basic idea of a style sheet is you can have a single file over here which maintains things like say the background color or the size of your fonts or the type of fonts or all that kind of stuff. So you have one file where all your styling is defined, and then that file in turn is linked to all your other pages. It has the advantage that, let's say you wanted to change, for sake of argument, the type of font, you would just change it once in the CSS file, and that then would be reflected in all the other pages, because all the other pages would get that information from the one file. So it's a little bit techy in some ways. You don't have to worry about it. As I say, I've got a mark against me there, but I still come up first, which is what the important thing is. But if I got to the stage where somebody else was coming up in front of me, then these ones here that are marked in red, I would suddenly go back to these and start paying a little bit more attention to them. Down here it's basically saying your text to HTML ratio is too low, or in plain English it's saying put more words on the page, basically, because there's the text that you see on the page, and then there's the HTML behind the page that does all the coding and the formatting and all the rest of it. And it's really saying that I need more text. Then finally here it's saying I've got a tick because I got a link to what's called an XML sitemap. Remember, an HTML sitemap is purely a page on your website that has links to the other pages on your website. An XML sitemap is something totally different. You don't see it. It's created purely for the benefit of the search engines like Google. Good news is if you're using something like WordPress, you just create or just install a plugin and it will take care of this for you. And the nice thing about WordPress, of course, is that this XML sitemap will be updated dynamically. Now, what this XML sitemap does is when Google comes to your website, it first of all looks to see if you've got an XML sitemap, and if it has, it's like a single point of reference that contains a list of all the pages you've got on your website and any changes that have been made recently, that kind of stuff, or any pages that have been deleted, that kind of thing. So it's not absolutely vital to have one of these, but it's a good idea, purely because Google recommends it. If Google suggests you do something from an SEO perspective, you don't argue with them. It's their game, it's their rules. You do what they tell you. And Google does recommend that you have an XML sitemap and also an HTML sitemap. Right, the next section I want to talk about here is the social analysis. I must admit, I'm not particularly good at social media. I like websites and I like YouTube. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, and I can't stand Twitter. It works for some people, it doesn't work for me. I just don't like Twitter. Facebook, it depends on your market. I've got customers who are hairdressers, for instance, and in that particular field, they get a lot of business from Facebook. In the commercial world, Facebook, I don't know, it was very, very popular a while back, but I think it's less popular now. It's just important that you do have a Facebook presence and a Google Plus presence and the rest of it. And you might find things change in the future, and again, it becomes more important. But it's one of those things you don't have to worry too much. But if you've got the resources to maintain a Facebook page, and Facebook's one of those things, if you're going to do it, either don't do it or do it properly, because if you've got a Facebook page that hasn't been updated for years, in some cases, the ones I've seen, it doesn't look that great. So anyway, I do have ticks here because I've got a button to my Twitter feed, button to my Facebook, Google Plus, and also I've got a blog on my website. It's very important that ideally you have a blog embedded within your website. So you might think, well, what's the difference between a blog and a website? Well, a website has a homepage that stays put. If I type in my case, www.forseotraining.com.au, that will bring up my homepage, and it always looks the same unless I go and change it, obviously. And the idea of a blog is blogs are something where you can have a blog homepage within your website, and every time you post a new blog, you get a little sort of summary displayed at the top of the list of your blogs. And when you display, or when you create another new blog, that goes right to the top. So basically, it's kind of more ethereal. It's things of the moment, if you like, and blog listing or blog posts are always displayed at the top of the listing, and generally you get a little summary, so you can click on that, open it up, and you'll see your blog. So if you're using WordPress, basically websites are created using pages and blogs are created using posts. If that doesn't make much sense, don't worry about it, because this is not a WordPress course, but that's the basic difference from a WordPress point of view. Posts are blogs, if you like, and pages are websites. Right, next we come to mobile analysis. Now, this is increasingly important. So we've got what's called a mobile sitemap that's been installed. The server uses something called gzip compression, and you don't have to worry what gzip is. Again, if you're using WordPress, there's a plugin that'll just sort it out for you, install it, forget about it. But the bottom line about gzip is that it can speed up the loading of your web pages using a compression technology. Exactly how it works, not important. We found an Apple icon. This is not strictly an SEO thing, it's more a branding thing, really. If you go to the trouble of creating an Apple icon, which is a particular size graphic, it's normally uploaded to your root directory on your server, then when you create favorites and what have you within Apple, then it will use that icon in things like the iPhone and tablets and what have you. And also in this case I got a tick because it found what's called a viewport meta tag. Again, you don't have to worry about that, but you just need one. And if you're using WordPress and you're using a responsive WordPress theme, if that doesn't make any sense, check out my WordPress courses. But a responsive WordPress theme will basically just take care of all this stuff for you, and you don't have to worry about it. Right, the next section is page link analysis. So it's found 100 links from other sites, so to some extent the more links the better, or at least that used to be true. These days the more quality relevant links the better. So you don't just want links for the sake of it, you want links that are relevant to you, i.e. in my case, I run a SEO training course, so if I've got a university or something that's involved in training and they link to me, that's a relevant link, and it's also a quality link, so you want good, relevant quality links these days. I've got 16 links from unique domains, so what it's saying is that in some of these cases I've got multiple links from sites, but a unique domain, remember a domain is like the www.yourcompany.com, it's basically saying 16 different domains have linked to me, which is good. It's also saying this page has 3 outbound links. They can be good and bad. And it also says this page has 3 outbound follow links. Again, I haven't really got time in this short presentation to talk about follow links, but essentially follow links are links that Google will follow, and no follow links are links that Google won't follow. So there is an argument that basically says if you're having outbound links, make them or tag them as no follow links. Again, check out my WordPress course how to do that. It's very straightforward. Then finally here we've got some Moz data. So we've got a Moz trust page, and this is measured out of 10, so I've got just over 6 there. So it's basically saying the page is trustworthy. Then I've got a Moz rank page, and again it's measured out of 10, so that's not bad. And then I've got a Moz page authority, which is measured out of 100, so I could really move that up a little bit. And that's like the authority of my particular page, if you like. Then if we go down here, we've got root domain analysis. So here we're talking about individual pages. Here we're talking about the website as a whole, if you like. And again, I've got 252 links from other sites, 23 unique domains, and again I've got scores which are slightly lower than the homepage ones for the website as a whole, and again slightly lower Moz domain authority for the website as a whole. But as I said, these are just numbers. These are kind of indicative of how well you're doing. What really matters is you type in your search phrase into Google. Are you on the first page? That's what matters, and we'll try that in a minute. Right, next we've got a section that's called domain analysis. So here's a domain for seotraining.com.au. The domain is less than 15 characters, which is good. If you've got a domain that's really, really long, then that can look a bit spammy from Google's point of view. And also it's found my keywords in the domain, because the domain contains the words SEO and training. The domain is over a year old, so Google likes domains that are over a year old. This bit here is actually an error because the way this is worked out, it's generally set up for .coms as opposed to .com.au. So in actual fact, this is an error in the program, so we can ignore that one. This bit here that talks about setting the preferred domain and colonization, you might think, whoa, what are those about? Well, it's really a way of setting up how your website is indexed. So if you think about it, from a human point of view, I could go up the address bar here and I could type in something like www.forseotraining.com.au. That's one way of doing it. Or I could type in the full traditional http:// blah, blah, blah. Then I could do both those versions with a / at the end. So I've now got, 4 different versions. And if you do the maths, there's probably loads more variations you could have as well. So I could have something like / and the name of the home page. That would produce the same result. So what this is about is basically saying you need to set up what's called your preferred domain. And again, that will vary depending on what sort of system you've got and what have you. But if you check out my SEO course, the premium course, I'll show you how to do that. Down here, the next thing, I've got another mark here, red mark. It's saying the site should be accessible via HTTPS. You think, whoa, what's that? Well, my website starts with http://www.forseotraining.com.au. So it's not a protected site. What I could do is go to my hosting company and just pay for a certificate and have that installed, at which point magically the base of the address, the start of the address, becomes HTTPS. The S stands for security. And what that means is the entire site is then protected, it's encrypted. And a while back, Google recommended that entire sites should be encrypted. Before that, a lot of companies would use maybe non-protected sites for the main site, but just have a protected area when people actually signed up with their credit card. So certainly when you take credit card information, that must be protected. The easy way of taking credit cards, of course, is to use PayPal, in which case you don't have to worry about security and seals and protection and encryption, all that kind of stuff. You just have a link over to PayPal and their site is protected. But that said, Google will give you a slight bump in search engines now if you go to the trouble of protecting your entire website. Again, I come up first, so I don't need to spend money doing this, but if I ever got to the situation where someone else was in front of me, then certainly I would pay the money and do this. It's not expensive. It's a bit technical. Just if you want to do it, just get your web hosting company to do it for you, basically. Right, down here we've got something else. We've got robots text file found. A robot text file, again, it's a bit technical. You don't have to worry about it too much, but the bottom line, if you're using something like WordPress, it'll just install this for you anyway. It just gets on with it. The idea of the robots text file is you can use it to exclude certain parts of your website from the search engines. Right, then finally in this section we've got something called a fave icon, short for favorite icon. So can you see up the top here, there's the little M here for the Moz website. That is a favorites icon. It's generally displayed up here. And also, if I went to the trouble of saving a page as a favorite or a bookmark, when I viewed my bookmarks, the fave icon would be displayed next to the save page. So again, it's kind of like a branding thing. It's not really important for SEO, but it's nice to have. Then finally, I've got the tasks listed here, things that I can fix if I want to. As I say, I show it pretty well, so I don't really need to worry about these at the moment. But if you had a score here of say 42, you're going to have a much longer list than this. And what you want to do is set about fixing things one by one. So the obvious things to fix initially would be things like your titles, your alt text, your headings, stuff like that. Making sure you've got the appropriate keywords within the body of the text. Do you remember that trick about making some text bold? That's the kind of stuff you want to start off doing initially. And then obviously there's a whole load more things you can do. So, but this will kind of put you on the right track, as it were, this audit. It'll show you whether you're showing up well or not as far as Google's concerned. Right, just to show you I do come up pretty well, I'm going to open a new copy of Google here. I have my browser set up, so every time I close it down, it flushes the cache and everything. So, you will find that if you do a search for your website, it shows up with a slightly different color in the results if you've done it before. And you'll find that increasingly the results will get localized to whatever you've been searching for in the past. I've specifically set this up so that it basically flushes all the information when I close down the browser. So I'm going to type in SEO training Perth, which is what I do and where I am. So as you can see, I typed in SEO training Perth. I didn't type in the name of the company or my name. So my name is David Murray. The company is Cheltenham Group. I didn't type that in. I just simply typed in the product or the service, in my case, SEO training Perth. So as you can see, you've got this massive great bit over here, which I didn't pay anything for. So that's like down to sort of Google My Business. That's local results, if you like. You've got advert, advert, advert. So you've got 3 adverts there. And if we go down past the adverts, let's look at the results. That one there, www.forseotraining.com.au, that's my homepage. This one here is also me. This one here is also me. And then after that, you've got other people. So that's not bad. So I typed in SEO training Perth. It's what I do, where I am. Certainly for all the local business I'm interested in, that's almost guaranteed what people will type in. And anywhere in Perth, you'll get sort of similar results. If you're in Perth, try it now. Try it and see. And in addition to that, of course, I've got this massive great thing here. So these people here, they paid a fortune to be displayed there. This one, this one, this one. Those are me. These are the organic, what are called organic results. These are pay-per-click results. It does work. So what's my score? My audit score was 92%. That translates into pretty good Google visibility. Not guaranteed always, but by and large, if you've got a good audit score, you're going to show up well for your keywords.